Ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to step aside for just a moment? Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask everyone to put your cell phones to silent at this time? Funeral service is going to be conducted by Cantor Pavel Reitman. Get over here.
Friends, we are gathered here today to say goodbye to our beloved Mark Feygin, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, brother, uncle, relative, and friend, a wonderful human being who is going to be missed by many. On this difficult and tragic day, our thoughts and sympathies go to the members of Mark's family, to Alexandra, George, Dmitri, Theodore, Tanika, Serge, Alec, Vlada, Angela, Gabriel, Ludmila, Anna, Sophia, also to Vladimir, Tatiana, Elena, Yulia, Stella, Faina, and to Allah. As well as to all other extended family members and friends present here today and those who mourn. As it has been our custom, we begin our ceremony with passages and psalms appropriate for this occasion. These readings have been a source of comfort and spiritual support to generations before us, and today we too turn to their time-tested wisdom and insight. Adonai ma'adam atedaihu, Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like breath. Our days are a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we're going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Lord, you redeem the souls of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. We will continue with words of the 23rd Psalm. There's a version in Russian on the inside of the booklet. If you happen to know the version in English, you can join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, he leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul, he guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine foes. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai Eloi, lo efsal, v'yodeh she'yabitzeni, armei menukot, inataleni, nafshi shoved yishoved, yancheni v'magli tzedek, yancheni v'magli tzedek, leman shema, kam ki ele, v'geit salmave, lo yirara, ki ata imadi, shiftecha, umishantecha, ema inachamuni. Adonai roi, lo efsa. Adonai roi, lo efsa. Mark Feygin was a gentle, kind-hearted, modest, and loving man who lived his life helping others, caring for his family, and making the world a better place. His was not an easy journey like many of his generation. Mark lived through the war and experienced hardship and loss. He also faced anti-Semitism and lived through major social, political, and economic upheavals in the former USSR. In spite of these challenges, Mark persevered and succeeded He built a successful career, created a wonderful family, and took the very difficult step of immigrating to the United States so that his loved ones, his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren had the opportunity for better life. Today, all of them, all of you, are stricken by grief, saddened by Mark's passing. Yes, today we mourn our dear Mark, but in remembering his journey, we also celebrate his life and all that was good and beautiful along the way. We recall his many achievements and hold dear the enduring legacy he left behind. As we share our memories and stories, we find comfort in knowing that Mark was a part of our world and a part of us, and thus he will never be forgotten. We will remember this wonderful man, and in our hearts and in our memories, he will remain an everlasting blessing. Mark was born in 1937 in Kiev to Sol and Dvoira Vera, two loving and caring parents. He also had an older brother, Vladimir, whom he loved very much and who played a profound role in his life as an older brother, role model, and a trailblazer, both in career and in life. Mark would often follow in his brother's footsteps and was grateful for Vladimir's influence and presence in his life. Unfortunately, Vladimir is not able to join us today for health reasons, but we share the sadness of this loss and mourn together with him and members of his wonderful family. But this is today. Back then in the 1930s and 40s, life was very different and challenging, to say the least. Mark was only 4 years old when the war began. His father was drafted and sadly perished, missing in action, after the Germans' devastating attack on the flotilla where he served. Mark's last memory of his father was from June 22, 1941, the very first day of the war. He remembered his dad getting ready to leave in his white sailor's uniform, lifting Mark up and saying, "Don't worry, son, we'll defeat the Nazis and I'll be back soon." Sadly, he never came back, but I'm sure that this memory stayed with Mark forever. Soon thereafter, Mark was put on a train with all the other evacuees and sent east away from the advancing front lines. Mark's mother, who at the time worked for the Kiev Railroad Authority, made the journey possible. It was also his mother who took care of the family along the way. Whenever possible, she would run off the train and exchange clothing for food for the family. This is how Mark and his loved ones survived. As the story goes, their original destination was Kuybyshev, a Russian city by the Volga River. But along the way, Mark's mother, who also spoke Uzbek and had relatives in Uzbekistan, overheard Uzbek train conductors who were heading there. This seemed like a safer destination than Kuybyshev and a much more reliable way to survive the war. Mark's mother took the opportunity and addressed the conductors in her own language, asking them for help. They agreed and hid the family in their quarters, taking them to their final desired destination. Thus, Mark survived the war. Returning to Kiev in 1944, he learned the sad fate of relatives and neighbors who had been left behind. Many of them had perished at the hands of the Nazis in Babi Yar, and this was truly a tragedy. As a young boy, Mark witnessed the worst of humanity, but also the best in survival and the defeat of evil. One vivid memory was that of German prisoners of war being put on trial in the local city hall, which served as a powerful confirmation that victory had been won and that life was about to begin anew. And for Mark, this was truly the case. He attended school number 147 on Bessarabsky Street, where he was an excellent student, especially when it came to natural sciences. Chemistry was the subject in which he excelled the most, and it became a cornerstone of his future life and career. While his road to success was at times bumpy, as relatives shared with me, anti-Semitism was a significant impediment to Mark's acceptance into an ability to study at the colleges of his choice. Nevertheless, he was thoroughly educated, persistent, and exceptionally intelligent, and eventually became a student at the prestigious Kiev Academy of Agriculture. There he studied mechanical engineering and upon graduation began working as an engineer at a design bureau. Mark was outstanding at his work and remarkably sharp. At one point, a reviewing commission arrived from Moscow to inspect the factory where he worked. After determining that everything was in perfect order, they asked to meet the team responsible for the successful work. They were astonished to learn that there was no team at all. Everything has been done by one man, Mark. Mark's exceptional abilities and skills were highly appreciated, not only by his superiors and colleagues, but also by others in the industry. In the early 1970s, he was even offered a highly desirable position at a military defense factory. He accepted the job but did not work there for long. An invitation to immigrate soon arrived, and at that time that meant he could no longer be employed. The KGB, the infamous Soviet intelligence agency, was watching and making sure of the outcome. This must have been especially difficult for Mark, who loved his work and devoted so much of his time to learning and studying in order to be the best. As his loved ones shared with me, he not only attended the Kiev Academy of Agriculture, but later in life also graduated from the Krasnoyarsk Chemico-Technological Institute. This further solidified his status as a highly skilled specialist in his field. Professional aspirations were a significant part of Mark's life, but work was not only his source of fulfillment and joy. A major part of what made Mark happy and complete was his family, and the time he dedicated to those he cared about and loved. Even before all the professional turmoil, Mark met Alla, his former wife and the mother of his children. They were introduced through a family connection and soon became attracted to one another. They shared many interests and values, both loved literature and reading, appreciated one another's creativity and intellect, and embodied kindness and wholeheartedness at their core. Although their marriage did not last in the long run, their relationship transformed into a friendship which proved deeply beneficial for them and for their beloved children. A few days ago, I met with Dima and Sasha, and during our conversation, they shared many beautiful memories with me. To them, Mark was a wonderful, loving father who guided them with kindness and love, appreciated their aspirations and talents, encouraged Dima's desire to draw, and supported both him and Angela at different stages of their life. He taught them not to suffer in despair, but to face life with curiosity and joy. As he would often say, "Yes, my life was tough, but I survived, I did not die, and that is what truly matters." Mark loved sharing his stories and the bits and pieces of history that he himself enjoyed reading about and learning. In some ways, one could say he was a history buff, but in other ways, he was a piece of history himself. A survivor of war and anti-Semitism, he was not bitter, but generous, and always willing and ready to help. When it came to his grandchildren and later his great-grandchildren, Mark was a constant source of encouragement and support. He adored his grandchildren, referring to them lovingly as the golden kids, Zolotые дети, and took great pride in their many achievements. At times, he was disappointed if their professional paths did not take them where he thought they should, but his love for them never wavered. And when some of the children chose what he believed to be the most important field in the world, chemistry, he was overjoyed. Chemia это высший класс, chemistry is the best, was one of his favorite sayings. All of Mark's grandchildren and great-grandchildren cherished and loved this remarkable man. A little later today, we'll hear some of their stories and beautiful memories of their grandfather, who truly was one of a kind. And how could one not love this kind, humble, yet inwardly strong man, whose very life was an example of love, self-sacrifice for the sake of those around him and the world. This was evident through Mark's life both in Kiev and later here in America, where he arrived for the invitation of his Aunt Mila, Uncle Arkady, and his beloved nieces, Stella and Feygin. It was through their generous help and support, as well as that of Mark's mother, Vera, that immigration became possible. Mark was deeply grateful to his relatives for giving him and loved ones the opportunity to come to the United States. Although the transition was not easy, Mark appreciated the freedoms America offered, as well as the opportunities it provided for his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to have better lives than the one he himself had known. And even though his life in the USSR might have been somewhat more vibrant and professionally fulfilling, he understood that America was the land of the future, and he respected and valued that truth. In the end, he was right. All of his loved ones today live freer lives, lives filled with opportunity. And in many ways, it was Mark's decisions, guidance, and support that made their success possible. All of Mark's relatives are grateful to him for this and for the many shared moments throughout their lives. Family gatherings, holidays, enriching conversations with relatives and friends, a spirit of positivity and warmth, countless smiles, these were all a part of Mark's world. These are the moments that will be remembered fondly and deeply missed. All of them bore Mark's presence, wrapped in the warmth of his big heart, where everyone could find comfort and love. Mark is no longer with us, but his presence lives on in our memories and stories, and in this way he continues to live, not only in spirit, but as a tangible, benevolent, and beloved presence. We will remember this wonderful man. May his memory be an everlasting blessing, and we say, Amen. I personally did not know Mark, but you, of course, did, and I now invite first Mark's children, and then after that, Mark's grandchildren to share their memories and stories with us. Please.
I would like to thank Catholic Public. Thank you very much for sharing the story about this life. You're emotional. It's feelings. Somebody who can explain it before we rush. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will love the cancer. Thank you. Catholic Public outline his speeches, basically the lifeline. It's the story of my life. There's nothing to add to what he lived, who he was. But I've made a few bullet points, some takeaways from that serve as a bright moments that kind of they were always invigorating for me. My dad was a humble and very kind man. He was always abundant in his praise. He was never critical of people in his family, his children, and other people. He would always find positive things to see, to say. And that negativity that was not present in his speeches. He was always curious in the life of our children, grandchildren, and it seemed like he had a special place for everybody. My son, my daughter, my sister's children, grandchildren, and it felt like he clearly knew where they were, what they were doing, and it felt like there were special people in his life. He was very much interested in the history and I think his specialty was the Second World War, not just because he knew about it, because he lived through it, and his ability to connect life of his family, his father, who was killed during the war. His grandmother who found a way to immigrate to move in time to save the family. It was always in his memories. He would always share with me. And he was always grateful that the victory persevered, the Soviet Union won the war. He was alive. It gave him an opportunity, a chance. And I think those memories was always connected to the point that he was very humble because of the war. He knew how to value simple, basic things in life. And it kind of stayed through him throughout his life. As you already know, his career was in engineering. He loved what he did, and he never ever boasted about his level of knowledge and what he did. Other people would say it from a side. Dr. Pavel mentioned that there was a delegation. I don't remember in details exactly what happened, but basically he was the only man who worked on the project. They were astonished that one man could potentially work on that project and then bring it to successful fruition. Leaving the Soviet Union, our parents, they were established in their ways. They both had careers. They were well into their field. They were respected. They had an established way of life. They did it for us. They did it for my sister and myself, so we could have a better life. Despite health issues, the challenges that our parents faced when they first came here, my dad always knew that it's for that sacrifice was made for us to have a better life. And I, totally grateful for him to not being selfish in that respect, but he gave us a chance to be where we are. I'd like to, my last point, I'd like to, if I would remember, was a very kind, very humble man who loved his children, their families, and people who were close to us. He was kind and very respectful to strangers. He was always willing to help within his means without ever asking anything in return. I will miss his abundant kindness. And sometimes I thought it was unjustified, but as I age, I realized that the man he was, and so I will remember him in my life.
First of all, I want to apologize for my English accent and mistakes. I did not prepare speech written, so I decided to go from face-to-face almost to everybody, and even people who are not here, and I can say a lot about my father. He absolutely loved people endlessly. If it would be accidental nurse or CNA, he would be deeply appreciated. This strong love to people became the path of his life. My mom was the only love of his life. He would take care of people quietly, invisibly. He would ask how they're doing, how they're feeling. He would remember every name. I remember, I'm going to jump from topic to topic, but I want to say, like, for example, he barely saw my uncle, Simon, who passed away, and we did not see each other really often, but when I told him that Simon has died, he said, and next, like a few days later, I told him, did you go outside, did you watch TV? He said, no, I can't, because Simon died. I can't, I don't feel like I'm going to watch TV now. He would visibly, maybe not present constantly in everyone's life, but deeply, he was very, very deep person. Deeply, he would accept and percept everybody's life circumstances. He would ask questions. I would say last year, was the end of his journey, and it started from his big inflammation on his leg. Then it was a robbery, the neighbor robbed him and beat him in Chicago. And through this journey, I want to say he met so much support. Maybe he even doesn't know about how much support he got, but he got support from Danica, from her mom, Danisha Perkins, from Vlada, from Alec, from my daughter, from, of course, his son. He would really be like appreciated, and I would tell him that person did this for you, that person, oh, tell them thank you so much. He really absolutely admired chemistry, and honestly, he was the one who suggested to my older son to be a math teacher, but he was absolutely happy that my second son, Serge, got a degree in biochemistry. That was for him like the top of the excellence, what could be the best. He loved everybody regardless skin color, religion, age. You cannot absolutely make this person mad or embarrassed. He would be patient. He was so deeply appreciated to people who helped him. For example, Lesya, who was his caregiver for a long time, he loved her. I would sometimes was getting jealous that I thought he loved her more than me. So that's the point, that he do not see faces, he sees souls. He would understand and find explanation for anybody's actions. Like Hunter said that he, I forgot the name, this is the point. But he would be really patient and kind with everybody. I would say he was the person of the world. He would walk to any door and people would automatically love him. He was absolutely happy that Alec, my nephew, my brother's son, loves history. He was always dreaming to talk to him hours, to discuss some historical facts. My father loved books. He was the one who was bringing to the house a lot of books. Since he was a child, I remember the fact that he went on the market, it was 1947, and he found old Tsar II books, History of Humanity, and he asked my grandmother Vera to give him some money, and he bought these books. I can tell you that he absolutely loved his aunt Mila, his uncle Arkady, his two cousins Stella and Feygin. And he was always asking questions about my aunt and kids. He would know the names, he would ask how they are doing. Even sometimes life was not really not close enough and not often enough, but he would still repeating people's names, and you can feel love. True love. You can say something negative to him, he will just drop it and he will go as a positive person filled with love and understanding. He was always trying to help me. Sometimes when I would be in a sad and bad mood, he would stop me and said, "Why you are sad? What are you thinking?" And he would mention exactly the thought I would be in my mind at the point. What I want to say, I remember when I was a child, he would organize the field trips for my class, and we went to many beautiful places around the Kiev, just because of my father was organizing this. I remember I went as a child on his конструкторское бюро, on the Киевская фабрика кожно-галантерейных изделий, машин. And I saw so much respect from his co-workers. He was absolutely brilliant mechanical engineer and chemistry engineer. I cannot say who he loved but he loved whoever present here, even people he doesn't know. He loved them. Through this his love journey, I want to say that it was the three lawyers. So when he was robbed in Chicago, it was the three lawyers, and it was very symbolic for me. One lawyer was Jewish, another lawyer was from Kazakhstan, he was Muslim, and another girl, she was Christian. And July 1st, it was a true victory when we got order of protection from the woman who beat him up. And I look at them, they were hugging him, they were supporting him, and I would say to myself, that would be ideal picture. It would be utopia, like Thomas More, and people love each other. When people forgive each other, and everybody would understand. Unfortunately, everybody has only one life. People who started the war will be always my enemies. Is it Palestine or it's Russia? It would be my enemies, because I want to say something. Ukraine never started the war. Israel never started the war. But people who are starting the war and think they're going to get a future life and a better life, they are mistaken. My father would find explanation and pure love for everybody, regardless their nationality. Even he faced a lot of anti-Semitism, he was still a person of the world. He would love everybody equally, regardless who you are, if you just do good things. So for me, my father, who you cannot make basically him mad, his example of patience, and I learned from him. Unfortunately, not long time ago, I realized that I was not patient enough really often. And my son Serge told me that practice your patience, because sometimes I get impatient, sometimes I even get angry. And my son told me, Mama, your mother's still alive. Practice your patience on your mother. And I'm 60 years old, and I really laugh about myself and think, if you tell me the truth, that I'm doing something wrong or negative, I will try to change it. What I learned from my father, that we all have to love each other. May his soul rest in peace near God kingdom, in the God kingdom. He deserved it so much. He was not a religious person, but all his life, he did not do anything knowingly bad to anybody. He would love everybody. He's a person on the earth. That means you're a person of God. Amen. And thank you, all of you, for coming. And thank you for who could not come, but made big influence on his life. Thank you so much.
Дочек, я тебе желаю самого наилучшего. Every time Mark called me, he would say this phrase. Means Theodore, like, I wish you all the best. And I knew that he was always a constant figure. He was there at every single gathering. You know, we bought our place in Lake Forest. We got a table big enough for all of our relatives, and if you can see the pictures, there's a spot for everybody. Myself, Tanika, Alla, Valia, Marik, Shurik, Denisha, Alfie, Seryoja, Angela. And we made a spot for everybody. We hosted all these times, and Mark was always present. You knew what you were going to get from Mark. You knew he was always going to be there. You knew he was going to ask for his tea to get poured into a little plate so it cools off a little bit faster. I loved his quirks. He was very nice with my kids. One of my first photos was when Mila was born. We hosted our first Thanksgiving, so 2014. And Mark liked to take naps, and so did Mila because she was a few months old. And there was a picture of them napping together in our bed. He was very dear to me because, you know, it was hard to always converse with him because he would not always have a lot of words to say, but his kindness was there for everybody. And I think that is the biggest thing we can take away, that nothing bothered him. he was always constant. He was there. He loved my wife. My wife loved him, and he would always be like, "Передайте Ничке привет." And so it was always just like so sweet. He knew exactly what we were gonna get. And so, for me, we are all shadows and dust at the end of the day. And Mark is gonna leave a big shadow at the table, and we will leave a spot for him. That chair will stay his. He was always there for us. He was there in every single Thanksgiving except this past one. And his shadow will remain. And Marek, я тебе желаю самого наилучшего. Amen.
I'm going to keep it brief. There are a lot of people here who had a lot more life with him, and my memories will be a bit of a repeat from some of the people here. He had his signature phrase, "Я тебе желаю всего самого наилучшего," and that was his goodbye after every conversation, and that was the last thing he said to me. And I always said, "Тебе тоже." And I said, "I'll see you next week."
Angela, you was with him really often.
Every time I visited him, he had kind words to say and the best well wishes to me, to everyone. He always said, "Передай всем привет." His kindness transgressed any language barriers, and even if you didn't know him as a person, if you saw his interactions with his neighbors, you would know how kind he was. Anytime I would pass his building, because my boyfriend lives next door, I would come visit him before and back when he still lived there. And his neighbors always said, "You're Mark's granddaughter? We love Mark." And even though he didn't understand what they would say, he just smiled at them all the time, was always very giving with his warmth and
Sometimes even
everyone,
money.
yeah, even money sometimes. Everyone felt his warmth even if they didn't understand the language, and even if you weren't talking to him in the room, you would catch his glance, or if you're sitting next to him, he would silently reach over to squeeze your hand and give you a big smile to let you know that you're important and he's thinking of you. And he loved everybody so intensely and cared about everyone so intensely. And I think we all felt the same way about him.
I'll share just a few stories about Mark because he's had a lot of very nice wishes from you all. One story was when I was little, and I would remember that I would go over to his place in Babushka Viera, and I would play with this little red toy car. And when I would lose it, he would find it for me, and he always cared. And I remember there was another time when he loved that I did biochemistry. That is exactly what he wanted. And I remember that, speaking to him in English, explaining what I know in English, and he only knew it in Russian. When I would draw the reaction, the chemical reaction out, he would finish it. And you can see that he understood you, and he felt you. And there's so much that he offered in his life. A man of very few words, but a lot of great actions, and he did so much for us, and I hope that we all, keep pushing for him, keep pushing for just all of our relatives that have passed, and trying to embody
the kindness that he had and the grace that he had. And he did wish everyone самое лучшее all the time. That's how he would finish up the phone call because he didn't want to talk to me anymore. But we love him all, and I'm just very grateful that we had that time with him. And I'm very glad that he passed with us in close proximity and in very close spirits.
Are you going to say? This is going to be a last speaker because we need to move on with the service and transfer to a different location.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Everyone, Serge, Angela, Sasha. Sorry. I've been thinking. I got the text from Serge. I was at a bachelor party this weekend, and a chill goes down your spine when you find out. Maybe not surprised, but death is final. Death is final. And you go through, you reflect, you think about what your memories, what the person meant to you, what lessons you can draw from them. And one of the things that I kind of came to is Mark is a good example of you don't know what someone's been through, and if you did, you would have maybe as infinite patience or more patience, more understanding of everybody around you. If you know what they've gone through, you won't judge them so hard. That's probably the main lesson that I've ever learned from Mark, because he was a man of few words. He was a man of a lot of smiles. That's his go-to for me. As I got older, as I became a man, and we kind of had deeper conversations, not too often, but some of the things that came out of it was, he could reflect on himself and understand that they turned out a certain way, and it is what it is. He could laugh at himself, he could understand that it is what it is. Sad, happy, doesn't matter. But I think through those conversations I learned about him, I learned about his relationship with my dad's relationship with me. So I appreciate that and I respect him for it, and he's in our hearts now and forever.
Friends, thank you for your beautiful words. As I mentioned in my conversation with the family a few days ago, unfortunately you can't tell somebody's life in the amount of time that's given to us, and there will be many more opportunities for each of you to share memories and beautiful words. I know that after the burial, the family will be heading to a meal of condolence at Jebek Jalu, and you can share memories there. And of course, for many, many days, weeks, and months, and years, you will be remembered. Sasha said something beautiful in her speech. She said many beautiful things in her speech. But one of the things that stayed in my mind was about how Mark didn't see faces, but saw souls. And this is ultimately the essence of every relationship, right? That it's not so much about what the person looks like, but the energy that you feel, and the energy that connects you. And he clearly had a beautiful energy that connected all of his family members and friends. This helps me make a transition to our final prayer here today. And that prayer in Hebrew is called El Malei Rachamim. And it talks about God in this very mystical place called Garden of Eden, which nobody had seen, but know exists. God in that Garden of Eden opens God's wings to embrace the soul in a sense, and embrace the energy of the soul that lives on. And I think it's a very beautiful picture when you think about Mark and where his soul is now going. It gives us a sense of beauty, it gives us a sense of comfort, and it makes us think that in some ways he lives on, at least in that mystical place in our souls and in our hearts. So before I sing the prayer for you and in his honor, I'd like for each of us to take a moment, close our eyes, and maybe recall one memory of Mark, a dear memory that maybe will make you smile or cry. Doesn't matter. Just let's remember Mark. Let's take a moment. I will now invite everyone to rise. Please stand. En nishmat Mark ben Sol V'Tvera Shekala Peolamo Vegan Ein Kemenukato Anabara Rakami Astireko Beseder Kenapeta Leolamim Utzror Mitzror Kakaimet Nishmato Adonai Kunakalato וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. Please be seated.
Following this, right now, we're going to be going to the Star of David Cemetery to do the interment of Mark. And that is located at 5736 North Pulaski in Chicago. Immediate family only is to follow in the hearse for procession, due to the fact we don't have it in the car. We just keep it very small today. We're going to be meeting around 2:10, between 2:05 and 2:10 at cemetery, Star of David Cemetery. And then also, as was mentioned before, the meal of condolence will be today, roughly around 3:30 at the restaurant Joel Jen in Glenview, which is 2601 Avatar Lane, Glenview. The address is in your brochures. Then, if I could please ask the grandchildren to please stand up, and anybody who would like to help be a pallbearer, can please meet me by the casket.
Also, if somebody cannot make to the cemetery, we will see you. Please come to the restaurant at 3:40, Jibek Julu in Glenview. You don't have to go to the cemetery if you can't. It's cold day, it's understandable. And you can bring Stella to the restaurant.
What we're going to do is we're going to turn the casket, we're going to go down this aisle, and in the back it'll be just, if you don't mind, you'll have to follow behind the casket if somebody will push with me, and then we'll go through this one. Yes, let's see.
If there are two more people who can help, please.
So we're going to go over here, with the
back.
Gabriel, and you haven't had one or two. No, so good. Gabriel, can you go maybe start my car? Не, ресторан. А можно потом взять это? Мы вместе. А чей это телефон? Я еще хочу какую фотографию, там где папа.